3-year-old Sophia heard the noise first. Not the guards outside the door. Not the women laughing downstairs. Not even the silent men in black suits standing at every corner of the Romano estate. A child heard it. A tiny scratching sound coming from inside the Mafia Boss's bedroom wall. Sophia Morales stood barefoot on the cold marble floor, holding her stuffed rabbit against her chest. Her mother had told her not to wander. Her mother had begged her to stay in the laundry room until the party ended. But Sophia had heard something strange upstairs, something like a whisper trapped behind wood. She looked at the locked bedroom door. Nobody was supposed to go inside Luca Romano's room. Not the maids. Not the kitchen staff. Not even most of his guards. But the door was not fully closed. A thin line of golden light stretched across the hallway carpet. Sophia pushed the door with one tiny hand. Inside, the room was dark except for the lamp beside the bed. The curtains were drawn. The air smelled like expensive cologne and old leather. On the wall above the fireplace, a large framed painting of Luca's late mother hung slightly crooked. Then the noise came again. Sophia stepped closer. Behind the painting, something blinked red. A small light. Then a voice whispered from somewhere inside the wall. After the toast, he won't leave this room alive as the same man. Sophia froze. Downstairs, the Mafia Boss's fiancée was smiling beside a crystal champagne tower, pretending to be the perfect future wife. But nobody in that mansion knew this tiny child had just seen the secret that would destroy the wedding. Hey, welcome back to Shadowed Heart. If you are new here, I am glad you found this story, because this one is not just about a mansion, a maid, or a powerful man. This is about a child who noticed what every adult ignored. Before we begin, tell me where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And stay until the end, because the final reveal in this story will change how you see every single person inside that house. The cruel fiancé, the quiet maid, the silent mafia boss, and the little girl everyone thought was too young to understand anything. Sometimes the smallest witness carries the heaviest truth. The Romano estate sat behind iron gates in the quiet hills outside New York, far enough from the city that no one could hear what happened there unless Luca Romano wanted them to. From the road, the estate looked like wealth. From inside, it felt like warning. Black SUVs lined the driveway like sleeping animals. Cameras turned slowly above the gates. Men in black suits stood under stone arches without speaking, their eyes always moving, always measuring. The mansion itself was beautiful in a cold way. White marble floors. Tall windows. Chandeliers that glittered like ice. A grand staircase curving through the center hall like something from a palace. But there were rules in that house. Never enter the west wing after midnight. Never touch the doors with silver handles. Never ask why the boss's bedroom had 2 locks from the inside. And never, ever mention the room behind the old library. The staff followed those rules because Luca Romano paid well, but also because everyone understood something without being told. In that house, silence was not peace. Silence was survival. Luca Romano was 36 years old, and his name carried weight from Chicago to Miami. He did not shout. He did not waste words. When he entered a room, conversations lowered by instinct. Men who feared no one checked their posture when he looked their way. But inside the estate, there was another secret most people missed. Luca was not cruel to those who served him. He remembered names. He noticed tired faces. He paid hospital bills quietly when a guard's wife got sick. He sent groceries to a driver's mother after hearing she had lost her job. He never said these things out loud. He simply did them. That was why Elena Morales had stayed. Elena was 30 years old, with tired brown eyes, dark hair always pinned back, and hands that had learned to keep moving even when her heart wanted to stop. She had not planned to become a maid in a mafia boss's mansion. Nobody plans a life like that when they are young. Once, Elena had wanted to become a nurse. She had studied at night, worked during the day, and believed that if she stayed patient, life would eventually become kinder. Then her husband disappeared before Sophia was born. No goodbye. No money. No explanation. Just an empty side of the bed and a phone number that no longer worked. Elena had cried for 2 nights, then stopped because crying did not buy formula. Crying did not pay rent. Crying did not keep a baby warm in January. By the time Sophia turned 3, Elena had become very good at swallowing pain before it reached her face. She cleaned hotel rooms first, then private apartments. Then, through a woman from church, she was offered a position at the Romano estate. The pay was better than anything she had ever earned. There was a small staff room where Sophia could sleep during late shifts. It was not perfect, but it was stable. And stable, for Elena, felt like mercy. She knew the house was dangerous. She knew Luca Romano was not an ordinary employer. But danger had many faces, and poverty was one of them. At least in this house, her daughter had food, warmth, and a locked door at night. So Elena lowered her eyes, did her work, and told herself not to notice too much. But Sophia noticed everything. Sophia Morales was 3 years old, small for her age, with soft curls, serious eyes, and a habit of staring at people like she could hear the words they were not saying. She carried a stuffed rabbit everywhere. The rabbit's name was Buttons, even though it had no buttons left. One ear hung lower than the other. Its fur had faded from white to gray. To Sophia, it was the most important thing in the world. She would sit quietly in the laundry room while Elena worked, lining up clothespins like little soldiers, whispering stories to Buttons. But Sophia had one unusual habit. She listened. She listened to footsteps. She listened to doors. She listened to the difference between a happy laugh and a fake one. She could tell when her mother was afraid, even when Elena smiled. "Your face gets quiet," Sophia once told her. Elena had stared at her for a long moment, then pulled her close. Children are supposed to miss things. They are supposed to live in a soft world where adults protect them from sharp edges. But Sophia had grown up around bills, tired hands, and whispered prayers. She knew more than Elena wanted her to know. The first clue came 2 weeks before Luca Romano's engagement dinner. Sophia had been playing near the laundry shelves when she saw Luca's fiancée walking down the service hallway. Victoria Vale was not supposed to be there. Victoria was 29, beautiful in a polished, expensive way, with blonde hair that never seemed out of place and green eyes that always looked amused by someone else's discomfort. She wore silk even at breakfast. Diamonds even when no guests were around. To Luca, she was elegant. To the staff, she was ice with perfume. Victoria stopped near a locked cabinet by the back stairs. She looked over her shoulder. Then she slipped a small black object behind a stack of folded linens. Sophia watched from behind a laundry cart. Victoria whispered into her phone, "It's inside. He still trusts me." Then she laughed softly. Not a happy laugh. A secret laugh. Sophia did not understand the words. But she understood the feeling. That small detail would matter later. Luca Romano did not know any of this. He was preparing for the engagement dinner that would introduce Victoria officially to every important family connected to his world. It was not only a celebration. It was a message. The Romano family was stable. The Romano family was united. The Romano family had no weakness. That last part mattered most. Luca had spent years building power after his father's death. He had survived betrayal, rival families, and men who smiled with one hand while reaching for a knife with the other. He trusted very few people. His inner circle was small. His private life was smaller. Victoria had entered that private life slowly. She knew how to speak softly when he was tired. She knew when to touch his arm in front of important guests. She knew how to look loyal. That was her greatest skill. But sometimes Luca caught moments that did not fit. A maid falling silent when Victoria entered. A guard looking away too quickly. Sophia hiding behind her mother's skirt whenever Victoria walked past. Once, Luca had found Sophia sitting near the kitchen door, staring at the staircase. "What are you looking at, little one?" he had asked. Sophia had pointed upward. "The pretty lady makes the house scared." Luca had not known what to say. He had almost laughed, but something in Sophia's eyes stopped him. Still, he ignored the warning. Adults are very good at ignoring children when the truth is inconvenient. Victoria's cruelty was never loud at first. That was what made it so dangerous. She never screamed when Luca could hear. She never insulted staff in front of guests unless she could make it sound like a joke. She never left marks, only fear. "Elena, the silverware has fingerprints again," she would say, even when the silver gleamed. "Elena, your daughter should not be seen near the main hall. Elena, do you understand the difference between staff space and family space?" Every sentence came with a smile. Every smile felt like a blade. Elena would nod, apologize, and return to work. She had rent payments, grocery bills, and a child who needed shoes. Pride was a luxury she could not afford. But Victoria's dislike of Sophia was different. It was sharper. Whenever Sophia came near, Victoria's expression tightened. Not annoyance. Not simple class arrogance. Fear. That confused Elena. Why would a woman like Victoria fear a 3-year-old? One evening, Elena found Sophia sitting quietly on the floor with buttons in her lap, staring at the west hallway. "What is it, baby?" Sophia whispered, "The wall talks." Elena felt a cold little movement in her chest. "What wall?" Sophia pointed toward Luca's bedroom. Elena forced a smile. "Old houses make sounds." Sophia shook her head. "No. A man talks in there when nobody is in there." Elena wanted to ask more, but footsteps sounded behind them. Victoria stood at the hallway entrance. Her smile was calm. "What a strange imagination your child has." Elena picked Sophia up quickly. "I'm sorry, Miss Vale. She's tired." Victoria stepped closer and touched one finger under Sophia's chin. "Then maybe she should learn to sleep instead of wander." Sophia buried her face in Elena's neck. Victoria leaned close enough for only Elena to hear. "If your daughter causes trouble during the engagement dinner, both of you will be gone before sunrise." The engagement dinner arrived on a rainy Friday evening. By 7 o'clock, the Romano estate glowed with candlelight. Black cars rolled through the gates one after another. Men stepped out in dark suits. Women in gowns crossed the marble entrance with diamonds at their throats. Guards checked names at the door. Cameras blinked above every hallway. In the grand dining room, a long table had been set for 30 guests. Crystal glasses. White roses. Gold plates. A silver champagne tower stood near the fireplace. Victoria moved through the room like a queen already crowned. She wore a deep emerald dress and Luca's engagement ring, a diamond so large it caught every light. She greeted guests with perfect warmth. She kissed older women on both cheeks. She laughed gently at dangerous men's jokes. Nobody looking at her would have guessed she had threatened a maid that morning. Elena worked silently with the other staff, carrying trays from the kitchen, refilling glasses, adjusting candles. Sophia was supposed to stay in the laundry room with buttons and a coloring book. But the storm outside was loud. And Sophia hated thunder. When the house shook with a deep roll of thunder, she slipped out into the service hallway, clutching buttons under one arm. That was when she heard it again. A scratching sound above the ceiling. She followed it. Past the linen closet. Past the silver-handled door. Up the back staircase. To Luca Romano's bedroom. The door was slightly open. Inside, she saw the painting above the fireplace tilted away from the wall. Behind it, a tiny red light blinked. Then Victoria's voice floated from downstairs, bright and sweet. "To loyalty." Guests lifted their glasses. And from behind the painting, a man's voice whispered through a tiny speaker. "Make sure he drinks from the crystal glass. The one with the gold rim." Sophia did not know what poison was. But she knew secrets. She reached up and touched the bottom of the painting. Something small fell from behind the frame and landed on the carpet. A black device. No bigger than one of her toy blocks. Sophia picked it up. At that same moment, Victoria appeared in the doorway. For 1 second, her perfect face cracked. "What are you doing in here?" Sophia stepped back. Victoria crossed the room fast and snatched the device from her tiny hand. "You little rat." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Downstairs, Elena heard her daughter cry. Every mother knows the sound of her own child's fear. Elena dropped the tray she was holding. Glass shattered across the kitchen floor, but she was already running. She reached the hallway just as Victoria dragged Sophia down the staircase by the wrist. The dining room went silent. Every guest turned. Victoria's smile returned, but now it was sharper. "I am so sorry, everyone," she said loudly. It seems the maid's child was caught stealing from Luca's private bedroom. Elena stopped at the foot of the stairs. Her face went pale. "No," she whispered. "Sophia would never." Victoria lifted one hand. "Don't embarrass yourself further." Luca stood at the head of the dining table, his glass still untouched in front of him. His eyes moved from Victoria's hand on Sophia's wrist to Elena's shaking face. "What happened?" he asked. Victoria gave a soft, wounded laugh. "I found her in your bedroom with something hidden in her hand. Elena has been letting that child wander wherever she wants. I warned her. I tried to be kind." Sophia clutched buttons with one hand and rubbed her red wrist with the other. "I heard the wall," she whispered. A few guests exchanged confused looks. Victoria laughed lightly. "You see? She makes things up. This is exactly why children do not belong in a house like this." Then she looked at Elena. "Pack your things." Elena felt the room tilt. 30 powerful people were watching her. Guards stood near the doors. Her job, her room, her daughter's safety, all of it hung by a thread. "Please," Elena said, her voice breaking. "She is 3 years old." Victoria's eyes hardened. "And old enough to steal." Something inside Elena burned, but fear held her throat closed. What would you do if telling the truth could cost you everything? What would you do if your child was crying, your name was being ruined, and the people watching had already decided you did not matter? Sophia looked at her mother. She saw the way Elena's hands trembled. She saw her mother's eyes shine with tears she refused to let fall. And in that moment, the little girl stopped crying. She pulled away from Victoria. Victoria tightened her grip. Sophia looked at Luca. Then she said, very clearly, "The pretty lady put a talking bug in your wall." The room went silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind of silence that makes people afraid to breathe. Victoria's smile froze. Luca slowly set his untouched glass down. "What did you say?" Sophia pointed upstairs. "In your room. Behind the mama picture. The wall talks. A man said you have to drink the shiny cup." Everyone looked at the glass in front of Luca. Crystal. Gold rim. Victoria moved fast. "She is confused." She was scared. Children say strange things. But Luca did not look at Victoria. He looked at Sophia. Then he lowered himself to one knee, right there in front of every guest, until his eyes were level with hers. His voice changed. It became soft, careful. "Little one, did you touch the glass?" Sophia shook her head. "Did you see who put the bug there?" Sophia looked at Victoria. Victoria's face went white. Luca stood. He did not shout. He did not slam his fist on the table. He simply lifted 2 fingers. Every guard in the room straightened. "Close the doors," Luca said. The sound of the dining room doors locking echoed like thunder. Victoria swallowed. "Luca, this is ridiculous." He turned to his head of security, a gray-haired man named Nico. "Check my bedroom. Behind my mother's portrait. Bring me whatever you find." Nico left with 2 guards. Nobody spoke while they were gone. Victoria tried to laugh, but the sound came out thin. "Are you really going to believe a maid's child over me?" Luca looked at her then. For the first time that night, there was no warmth in his eyes. "I am going to believe evidence." Nico returned 6 minutes later. In his hand was a tiny black transmitter. Behind him, another guard carried a small wireless camera. A murmur moved through the room. Victoria took 1 step back. Luca did not move. "Play it," he said. Nico connected the device to a tablet. At first there was static. Then a voice filled the dining room. Victoria's voice. "He still trusts me. After the toast, he'll be too weak to question anything." Then a man answered. Matteo Bellini, the rival boss whose family had been trying to break Luca's power for years. "You promised me the Romano ledger and his signature. Don't fail me now." The tablet continued. Victoria laughed softly. "Relax. By tomorrow, Luca will think Elena poisoned him. The maid is perfect. Invisible. Disposable." Elena covered her mouth. Sophia pressed herself against her mother's legs. Luca's face did not change, and somehow that was the most frightening thing in the room. Victoria shook her head. That's not real. Nico tapped the screen again. The video opened. Victoria in Luca's bedroom. Victoria moving the painting. Victoria placing the transmitter behind it. Victoria holding a small vial over the gold-rimmed glass. The final hidden truth was worse than betrayal. Victoria had not only been working with Matteo Bellini. She had been planning to frame Elena for poisoning Luca during the engagement dinner. Once Elena was blamed, Sofia's claim about the talking wall would sound like a child's panic. The maid would be removed. The rival family would get the ledger. Victoria would disappear with protection from Bellini. But she had made one mistake. She had forgotten that children listen. Luca looked at Elena. For a second, the Mafia Boss vanished and only the man remained. A man realizing that a woman and her little girl had nearly been destroyed inside his own home. Elena, he said quietly, I am sorry. Elena could not answer. Victoria suddenly moved toward Luca. Luca, please. You don't understand. I did it because Matteo threatened me. Luca's voice stayed calm. No. You did it because you thought everyone beneath you was invisible. He removed the engagement ring from her finger himself. Then he handed it to Nico. This wedding is over. Victoria's mouth opened, but no words came. Luca nodded once toward the guards. Escort Miss Vale out. She leaves with nothing that entered this house under my name. There was no shouting. No chaos. No graphic violence. Just quiet authority, and somehow it felt final. The guards stepped aside as Victoria was taken from the room. Guests watched in stunned silence. Men who had known Luca for years looked at Sofia like she had just done what trained security had failed to do. Luca turned back to the table. To everyone here, he said, you witnessed a crime against my house, my staff, and a child. Remember what saved us tonight. His eyes moved to Sofia. Not power. Not money. Truth. Later that night, after the guests had left and the storm had softened into rain, Elena sat in the kitchen with Sofia on her lap. Sofia was wrapped in a blanket, buttons tucked under her chin. Luca entered quietly. For a man feared by half the city, he looked almost uncertain standing in that warm little kitchen. He placed a small cup of cocoa on the table in front of Sofia. Sofia looked at it carefully. No gold rim, she asked. For the first time all night, Luca smiled. No gold rim. Elena wiped her eyes. Mr. Romano, I don't know what to say. You do not have to say anything, Luca replied. You and your daughter are safe here. And if you choose to leave, I will make sure you leave with enough to start over properly. If you choose to stay, the rules in this house change tonight. Elena looked up. What rules? No child will ever be treated like she does not belong under my roof. Sofia looked at him over the top of her cup. The wall won't talk anymore? Luca crouched beside her chair. No, little one. The wall won't talk anymore. Sofia seemed to think about that. Then she held out buttons. You can hold him. He's brave. Luca Romano, a man who had faced enemies without blinking, took the worn stuffed rabbit like it was something priceless. And maybe in that moment, it was. Because sometimes a mansion full of powerful people cannot see what a child sees clearly. Sometimes truth does not enter the room wearing a suit or carrying a weapon. Sometimes truth walks barefoot across a marble floor, holding a stuffed rabbit, brave enough to say the wall is talking when every adult tells her to stay quiet. And maybe that is why we need to listen more closely to the smallest voices around us. Because they may notice the clue everyone else missed. They may carry the truth everyone else is afraid to speak. And they may save more lives than they will ever understand. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments. What was the first clue you noticed? Was it the strange noise, the gold-rimmed glass, or Victoria's fear of Sofia? Like this video, subscribe to Shadowed Heart, and tell me where you are watching from. Another story is waiting, and trust me, the next secret is even darker.